sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first. Unfortunately, some members of the media platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda control exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
The following is a pattern interruption of your regularly scheduled brainwashing program.
Welcome to the Reality OS. I'm Peter Duke, and I'm joined by Tracy Connors, and we're here to talk about the digital diaspora today. How you doing, Tracy?
I'm good, Peter.
Tracy, what's going on with the color on this page?
We're time travelers from the past.
Yeah, it's interesting because whenever you look at something in black and white, it always suspends your disbelief a little bit. It moves you from the realm of the known into the realm of the unknown.
Yeah.
So,
it also makes everybody look better, I think.
Yeah. Sydney doesn't look very good there, though, compared to us. No. I mean, look, my skin is glowing.
Yeah, me too. You have to worry about what color does my face look, and you're like, well, it's magenta, and then your walls look green, so let's do XYZ. It's just like, nah, F it, we'll go black and white. It's fine.
Yeah, black and white is great. It's fun. So I'm going to go to Washington, D.C. tomorrow, and I'm going to go take pictures of Ali for a couple of days. So we thought we would duck in here early and try to get a show in because I don't know what my schedule is going to be like this weekend. Do you have any plans this weekend, Tracy?
I plan to be reading a lot.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah. But otherwise, I'm around, and I'm interested that you're now going to the front lines.
Yeah, it's sort of the front lines. I guess it's the front lines. We'll see if it's the front lines. I think that the front lines are really like in every state capital at this point, but, it's the federated civil war. So we'll see what's going on.
Well, there you go, the Rebel Federation.
I mean, if you think about it, it's like, if you wanted to get the torches and pitchforks out, like what building would you go burn down? Because there's nobody in their office right now anyway, right?
It's true. Well, you could just take over the buildings and live in them. Just be like, hey, everybody that's getting evicted and can't pay their rent, let's go live at the Department of Agriculture and the Commerce Department and the FBI building and the IRS building and the EPA building. Just take them over.
High ceilings, big windows.
Yeah, absolutely. Plenty of hardware. I'm sure there's just computers sitting there, but they're probably like Commodore 64s.
I do think about that when I'm driving around Washington, D.C., and you just see these huge, FDR era monolithic buildings that are, they're like Rome, but they're like much bigger scale, I think, than probably anything that was ever in Rome. And you wonder, like, is this what George Washington was really thinking about? Would he be embarrassed if he knew that this city had his name on it and it looked like this? I'm not sure.
Well, he'd be embarrassed by the architecture for sure. The architecture's hideous in a lot of those buildings.
Yeah, it certainly is. And would Abraham Lincoln appreciate the fact that his hands are resting on fasci? That in the Lincoln Memorial.
I don't know. We got to bring some of our alt history guys on here, and they'll tell us a totally different story about Abraham Lincoln that might upset some people.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been waiting for Trump to go Abraham Lincoln. Suspend habeas corpus, start throwing journalists in prison, shut down certain news outlets. That would be fun. I mean, they're trying to shut us down, so we might as well have some fun too.
He doesn't seem to want to have fun and go full Lincoln.
Yeah. Anyway, so the title of our show today was The Digital Diaspora because I've been working with a client this week, helping them move off of the platform that they were booted from, which is like a big, free speech platform. And fortunately, because of the technology choices, it was relatively simple to do. And it's interesting because all of a sudden there's a lot of attention being paid to traffic and numbers that wasn't being paid attention to before. And I can share one detail about that, and that is, if you've been deplatformed and you move over to another, I'm talking about websites now, and you move over to another platform, it's really interesting how the statistics for the traffic breakdown, because about 90% of the traffic to this website that I've been working on is organic, meaning it's old school. It's like 90. It's like looking at statistics from the 90s. The 90% of the traffic is coming from what they call direct traffic, meaning people are typing in the URL, or they've got it bookmarked and they're clicking on a bookmark and they're coming directly to the site. And the traffic on this site is huge. It's not Drudge level, but it's significant, and it's one of the most significant traffic sites that I've worked on in a while. And it's just kind of a little mind-blowing to me, because it's just really kind of a blog with a really, really vibrant comment section in it. And it's interesting because it makes me think that we could bring the blogosphere back. That if all of these people are getting kicked off of social media, let's just all move over to RSS platform again and start sharing blog rolls and start using feed readers again. Because then you can kind of roll your own Drudge report. You can build your own subscription list. These things called feed readers were really, really popular right before Facebook happened. And if we could start to migrate back to that type of technology, there's no way to shut any of us down. And
this is why we're coming to everybody from the past to revive this ancient technology that predates. It's like pre-2007. And so what a feed reader does is grab an RSS feed. And I would imagine that a lot of people don't even know what an RSS feed is.
Right.
So it looks like the little symbol at the top of your computer for your Wi-Fi signal, except it's turned at a 45-degree angle from that. And what it is it pumps out all of the posts, and in some case videos, podcasts, whatever. It's how Apple iTunes grabs podcasts. It's a feed. Imagine it being like a radio signal. And so what Peter's saying is grab all these radio signals from all these sites and dump them into your own. You can build your own curated news site that way if you wanted to.
Right. And so if you search for the term feed reader, you'll find that a lot of your favorite websites do support RSS, because it was a technology that, and RSS stands for Real Simple Syndication. It was a XML specification that was created by a guy named Dave Weiner, and he invented the blog, Dave Weiner, and his conceit was that there was this technology that came out called XML, which meant that you could define everything in the world, using a markup language. And Dave saw all of these people creating all of these kind of crazy kinds of markup languages, and he said, well, what's the simplest kind of news that you could possibly have? It's a headline, it's a description, it's the story itself, and maybe a picture. And he wrote the whole specification up. I think it's 2 pages long, and it just created this giant explosion that became the blogosphere. And it was, and the guys who were kind of like leading the charge, there was a company called FeedBurner, and Dick Costolo, who wound up becoming the CEO of Twitter.
We're getting in the weeds, Peter.
All right, so you pull up the tangent sign.
Feed weeds. Well, we didn't make those black and white.
Yeah, we didn't make them black and white.
So the point is that this technology exists, but it's kind of been overshadowed by the bigger social media sites and news sites where they pay people to write journalism, as you call it, like turn out stuff and walk away as fast as you can. So now let's take a step back and look at what we could have given what we already have. So if you check out our site, which we launched on Sunday, thereealityos.com, there's a section on there that I believe I called the networks, and that's what we're pulling in all.
Yeah, and we're experimenting with that right now. I think that we've got about 8 or 9 different sites, because what we're doing is we're going around and we're checking different sites to see if they have RSS feeds. Most of them do, but unfortunately, sites like Mark Kulak's Housatonic ITS is written in Google Sheets, so
it doesn't work.
That doesn't work, and I need to talk to Lauren to find out whether or not that site that she built on Wix has RSS. It might, right. And if it does, then that'll be fine. You can use that.
Yes, I have it called Research Network Feed. But we're getting so much content coming through that it's crazy. So if you want to have a blog that's constantly having new content, which the search engines love, then pulling in RSS feeds is a great way to do that. You don't even have to be writing stuff all the time. Right.
You're just aggregating the things that you would normally read anyway.
Yeah.
It's kind of like creating a playlist in Aaron Schwartz knew what RSS was. Yeah, Aaron Schwartz. Poor Aaron Schwartz. Yeah. Although Aaron Schwartz's mother is an enigma to me, because she seems to stand for a bunch of things that I didn't think Aaron would necessarily be aligned with, but who knows? Yeah, so pulling in, I gotta silence my phone.
I thought we did that before.
I did that, but it doesn't keep people from calling me, unfortunately. So there's a bunch of technologies. If you search for, I have a application on my iPhone called Feedly, and I think it's freemium. I think there's a free version of it and a premium version of it.
How about we'll throw up a blog post on the new site where you can tell people where to find all this stuff.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
It's a good idea.
Build your digital fortress.
Right. And just, because people have been asking me my neighbor came over yesterday and she's, she's part of the diaspora. She's disenfranchised. She used to watch Fox News and read the Drudge Report. She has no idea where to go now. She doesn't want to watch Fox News, and she doesn't want to go to the Drudge Report. And so she's coming over to my house and knocking on my door. Saying, where do I go to find out what's going on?
I had the same thing happen to me this morning. My answer was go to rt.com.
The joke I always tell about that is that Vladimir Putin figured out that the American media is so dishonest that the only thing he had to do to mess them up was tell the truth.
Yeah, and my take on them has been for years that they have the same position that I do, that the United States federal government cannot be trusted and they lie all the time. So let's expose that.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a simple strategy, and guess what? You can find cheap, good talent, out there in the world who will be happily go expose the truth for you all day long because they're true believers.
Oh, according to Lee, though, who works at Sputnik, which is the other Russia-funded American-based news network, they pay very well. They don't, why not? I'm sure we pay a ton for our propaganda.
Yep, he had teeth after he started working for the Russians, which was better than Breitbart never bought him teeth. So,
oh, that's a good clip. Putin bought Lee teeth. Bannon never did.
So anyway, so I kind of look at all of it when I started looking at the statistics.
Yeah, Revolver News is good too. We'll have to see if they have an RSS feed. So go ahead. So are you allowed to say which website this is that you've been working on?
Yeah, I think I can. It's the Conservative Treehouse.
So the Treehouse will stay intact.
The Treehouse is thriving. They're doing I think they're doing better because I kind of think that word automatic, which is, so part of the discussion that gets confusing is that WordPress, the software, is open source software, but it's owned by a company called Automatic, spelled with 2 T's, because the guy who started it is named Matt Mullenweg. And that platform started off as the free speech party for the free speech movement kind of software positioning. So when I got the call and heard that these guys have been booted off of Automatic, I was a little dumbfounded because it was like, really? Those guys are kicking people off? But the good news is that there's another WordPress, which is the open source software foundation that the software as a service runs on. I know that's a mouthful and it's really complicated, but basically there's self-hosted WordPress, which is install the software yourself, run it yourself. Nobody can deplatform you. And then there's WordPress.com, which is we do everything for you. We take care of all the technology. All you have to do is write a blog. And if you say stuff we don't like, we're going to kick you off. So that's what wound up happening. And so it's just been eye-opening looking at the numbers because the site does really well. It's a really, really popular site. It's got a vibrant community, and the direct traffic coming to it is amazing to me.
Yeah, they've basically built a social media platform without building a social media platform, or at least presenting it as such.
Yeah, exactly. And, if you look on the website, there's a bunch of stories about the commenting system because we've learned a lot about commenting systems moving it over because it turns out that they're incredibly resource intensive, meaning that it takes a lot of server processing and bandwidth and things like that. And so we had to kind of dial some things in order to make it work better. But the reality is that each post that goes up on that site has, at any given point in time, 1,000 people reading the story and commenting on the story at the same time.
Wow.
So thousands of people sometimes. And I'm just looking at those numbers and thinking, oh, this is why they built social networks, because they saw this behavior happening. But, we can build social networks around stories. It's basically already done. We just have to circle the wagons, as it were. Before there were blog rolls, there were these things called circles. Were they called chains? It was like you'd have a bunch of Lord of the Rings sites, and they would call it a ring, where they would all link to each other. So, and then when the blogosphere happened, then all the blogs started to point to each other, and they called that a blog roll. And what it does is it just kind of gives you a place to go. So if you go to a website that's got a blog roll on it that has a bunch of things that are more or less aligned with the thing that you're reading, you can click on one of those links and it takes you to another website where you'll see a bunch of stories. And it's not quite as curated as something like the Drudge Report or Revolver, but it's pretty close. And a lot of times you're going to find more interesting stuff.
Sure. You would go places that you wouldn't normally go. Absolutely. And I can't really speak to, I'm assuming that's supposed to be Newsmax. I don't know that you can look at any platform and say they are correct.
Right.
Because the news is presented in narrative form. Nobody's sitting there and just saying, today in Washington, X met with Y, and they discuss Z. And the outcome is Omega. They just don't do that. It's all about speculation because that's all you really have around the set of facts. So depending on the perspective that you're taking to look at those facts, that's what differentiates the left and right media. It's the approach that you come to it with.
Well, it's the audience that you're writing to also.
Sure.
I mean, in the age of pay-per-click journalism, it's difficult to write a story and then, I mean, there are websites that I know of, websites on the right, and I'm not sure that this is true now, but certainly 3 or 4 years ago, where the people who wrote for those outlets were getting paid by the click. Mm-hmm. Meaning if they wrote a more popular story, they made more money, which the problem with that approach is that it means that the more outrageous the story is, then the more traffic it's going to get and the more money the reporter is going to get. And so it becomes this cycle where people are constantly trying to pump up the outrage meter.
Yeah. I'll add this to the front page of the site under must reads.
Okay. It feeds the outrage meter. There's a pretty good book by, I'm trying to remember what their names were.
Well, email it to me and I'll add it to the book page.
There's another book that I read too. By a couple of kind of phony conservatives, but the content is good content, and it's an honest book. I just can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. But it talks about the same thing, and so that becomes the issue, right? And so if your website, if your salaries and your server bills and all of that other stuff is being paid for by advertising, and if you're giving people a bonus for the amount of traffic that they generate, then that determines the types of articles that they write. So for example, it's like, regardless of what you think about Sidney Powell, her Kraken comment created a flood of attention, and attention translates directly to money on the internet.
Attention is the most valuable commodity going right now.
Right. So regardless of what you think of Sidney Powell, she created millions of dollars in revenue, or certainly hundreds of thousands, probably millions of dollars in revenue for all of the different websites that were covering the Kraken story. Right. Sure. What is the Kraken? When is the Kraken? Is it a piece of technology? Is it an army regiment? Is it a super secret program? There's all this speculation going on.
That's the right side of the aisle. And then the left is, what, this lady is crazy. What the hell is she talking about with this Kraken nonsense? And then they can go into that and attack her from all these different angles and bring in everybody's favorite single letter into the mix and go down that rabbit hole. So it branches out from there. And it's just, you can turn out 10, 15 articles.
Right. So I'm just wondering, like, if somebody was doing a PhD dissertation or something, like doing a net present value for the word Kraken, right, over time, starting from the first time that she said it, up until now, like how much revenue is that generated, right?
I'm sure somebody could figure it out. But once you start looking for this stuff, like just BS filler garbage. Like I tweeted it out this morning because I thought this is such a ridiculous story to even bother printing. So let me throw this up. Look, Biden will disinfect the White House, Peter, after Trump moves out.
Right.
Wait, I'm sorry, what? Why is that in the news? Number one. And number two, your headline makes me think of Joe Biden's going to be running around with some Lysol wipes. It's just absurd. like with a claw? Yes. You can tweet that out. I'm just like, wow, somebody wrote this and it's more than that headline.
Or how about the Daily Caller runs bikini stories? Right.
They had Betsy Rothstein, was that her last name? And she passed away recently. I guess she had cancer.
Did she?
Yeah. She was their gossip reporter. I thought she was great because she did kind of like a Hollywood gossip mag kind of take in DC, and she didn't pull punches on anybody. So,
well, I saw this headline this morning. It says maybe you can find it while I'm talking about it, but it's on the Daily Caller. It's Georgia Gibbs torches internet with series of blue bikini shots. On the Daily Caller.
That's probably something that they're getting from somewhere else. Or is that a Daily Caller original?
I think it's a Daily Caller original, but I was interested by the name of the woman who posted it, which is Katie Jerkovich, which I think...
I'm telling you, I think these are AI bots that they have. It's cheaper to just create a bot.
I think...
And have them write stories.
I think having somebody named Jerkovich writing bikini stories is funny.
As Scott Adams would say, that's the simulation winking at you, Peter.
It is the simulation winking at me.
And then I would roll my eyes so hard that you would hear it in California.
Indeed. So anyway, so that's the good news. And then this other guy, I thought I had it right here, and now I don't see it. They're one of the founders of Wikipedia, not Jimmy Wales, the other guy, and I had it up and now I don't see it. He's calling for a total bailout from YouTube based on the letter that they wrote yesterday, or the blog post that they put up yesterday, saying that they were going to start automatically deleting any video that contested the election, since yesterday was quote unquote safe harbor day.
Right.
Which is like Kwanzaa or some other holiday that I've never heard of, but.
So the guy from Wikipedia is against YouTube now?
He had a falling out with Jimmy Wales. And the reason that I became aware of him is because I tweeted out a couple of weeks ago. I was wondering, because I'm Mr. Conspiracy, right? So I think that I look at something like Wikipedia and I look at the code, like, because I used to be a coder, I look at the software that is used to write Wikipedia, and I think this is a government program.
You talked about that at length on one episode we did a while ago.
Yeah, it looks like government code to me. So, and then I started thinking, well, where did they get the content? And then it occurred to me that the CIA World Fact Book would have probably been where I started if I was building something that I wanted everybody to believe was an open encyclopedia. And so somebody said, why don't you ask him? And so and they quote tweeted him with my Twitter, and then he answered me. And what he said was that he didn't know that the CIA was directly involved in the creation of Wikipedia. However, since the creation of all of the administrators was completely anonymous, he wouldn't rule it out. So that was his answer back to me.
That's fair enough. But to get to this comment, yes, attention translates into money. It's an energy transfer. It's alchemy.
Literally.
And Peter, I know you have a flight tomorrow, so maybe you could watch the documentary, what is it called? The Social Dilemma.
Oh, yeah, that my daughter told me that I should watch. And then when she told me it was on Netflix, I pushed back and she got mad at me for...
Oh, yeah, you'll be angry watching it.
She gave me an okay boomer kind of.
Yeah, no, watch it, because I'd be interested to have us talk about it. I think we should start doing some documentary and talks and maybe book talks as well going forward.
Yeah, talking about books would be good.
Yeah.
I'm about 3/4 of the way through this Billy Phillips Kabbalah thing. It's good. I mean, it's good, but it's torturous. And he was on Roseanne yesterday.
Oh, interesting. She's had a lot of weird guests on. Well, weird.
And what's interesting is that he gave up about like this thing is 11 hours long, and I think it's 11 hours long, and it's got like I would say it's probably got 3 good hours of content in it, and the rest of it is just kind of this over the top filler and stretching and just.
But what is it, Peter? Because
it's Kabbalah.
Like, I'm watching this Billy Phillips thing. Like, no, what is it?
It's a Kabbalah thing, but he's framing it as Jesus Christ's, or not Jesus Christ, as Jesus's secrets. So it dovetails a lot with the stuff that you and I talk about with Pat, with the occult stuff, with the Gnostics, and it does bridge a lot of. There's a lot of bridging between Christianity and Judaism, and understanding what the Kabbalah and the Zohar are, all that stuff. It's all really good information, and he does a good job of explaining it. But like I said, my main criticism is just the fluff. It's just all of the extra stuff that doesn't really need to be there. That said, I do think that we might hit a moment where the Robert Grant geometry, cryptography stuff overlaps the Kabbalah, Billy Phillips stuff, and kind of changes the way that we look at religion and physics and science and all of those things. So that's why I'm looking at it. I recommend I recommend it. It's just be prepared.
Well, do you also have less of a tolerance than most people? And maybe they don't know all the things that you're considering to be fluff.
That's true.
So if you would recommend it, can you get an affiliate link, Peter, and put it up on the site?
Maybe.
Yeah, you should reach out to him. Try to do that.
I'll go find out. Yeah. And he was, it was recommended to me by Andrew Meyer, who's my friend, who is the Don't Tase Me Bro guy who's
he's big in the LA Kabbalah Center, right?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
And he gave me a little Zohar about a year ago, and I said, I opened it up, and I said, "This is in Hebrew," and he goes, "Don't worry about it. It's a mitzvah."
Well, everything could be a mitzvah, right?
I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
So anyway, but then see, the real debate that I want to see is like Andrew Meyer versus Hoffman, Michael A. Hoffman II, because Michael A. Hoffman says that the Zohar is satanic, but if you listen to Billy Phillips, then you understand that there's what do they call the 10 things? The Sifroth.
On the Tree of Life.
Yeah, that there's a black one and that there's a white one. There's a good one and a bad one.
No, that's not true. My understanding, at least, that's not the case.
Again, when you start going into Kabbalah, it's like going into Gnosticism. It's like you've got half the people saying one thing and half the people saying something else, and they're both pointing at each other, going, "No, that's not true."
Right.
Right. What's your favorite platform for these broadcasts? The one that you're on.
Yeah, I mean, we use one platform, like I think of StreamYard, that we use to record these as the platform that we use, and we're just being syndicated by other content providers that allow us to beam out to them and receive that beam.
That's right, and so right now we're going out to Facebook, YouTube, 2 Periscopes, Twitch,
and DLive.
And that's because we never know where we're going to be next, which is why you should like and subscribe us wherever you are. And you should go to the Reality OS and bookmark it. That would be a good idea.
Yeah.
Because our friend Lauren found out last week after she got her Twitter canceled for the second time, she has a link tree, which is all. I have a link tree. If you go to linktree/Peter Duke Photo, I have a bunch of links.
And we'll put that on the site too, under the About section.
It may be there. I'm not sure.
If you didn't, I don't know. Anyway.
Who knows?
Yeah. Oh, man. Exactly. The Immortality Key Book on Religion with No Name, Psychotropics, baby. Yep. I don't know that I read that one.
Yeah, I don't. I've got a lot of experience with psychotropics, but I'm not sure.
Birth of the Modern, Tragedy and Hope. Which one is better? I haven't read Birth of the Modern. Have you, Peter?
I have. I actually listened to, when I was working at Virgin Megastore, I got it. My brother gave it to me. It's huge. It's this thick. And there was something called booksontaped.com back in the day before Audible. And so I listened to it on my way to work. It was 45 tapes.
Okay. So what's your take? Which one's better?
Birth of the Modern is a fascinating book. And it is better written than Tragedy and Hope. But Tragedy and Hope, well, first of all, I recommend reading a book called Tragedy and Hope 101 first.
And I have that pinned on the front page of the Reality OS under the must-read books section.
And the reason is because Tragedy and Hope 101 is a short, like Cliff Notes version of Tragedy and Hope. And Carol Quigley has the same writing style as Winston Churchill, which is roughly equivalent to a Valium.
He's an academic. It's incredibly boring.
Right. And so, right. So guys like Quigley and Anthony Sutton, they write these books about fascinating subjects just in the driest and most direct and kind of encyclopedic way possible. The Birth of the Modern is an entertaining book. It's lyric, and it's the guy who wrote it has a great storytelling style. So basically, the book, The Birth of the Modern, is about 3 inventions. The paved road, which was developed by a guy named McAdam. It was tarmac is short for the words tar macadam. He invented the machine that broke up rocks and mixed it with tar to make roads. And then telegraphy, which was the first form of electronic communication. I saw Ron said, "Yeah, Ron, I got the History of World War II by Winston Churchill, and when I was in high school, and that was how I always fell asleep every night." And then the third invention that is covered in the book is a steam engine. So the steam engine, the telegraph, and the paved road all happened within the same 25 or 30 year period in history, and it completely changed the economics of the world. And he goes into the carriage trade in England. There were transport was done with horses and in wagons, and the first thing that happened was that they invented the paved road, and then that exploded the ability for horse-drawn wagons to be able to move. They went from being horse. It just made everything a lot faster.
Right.
But then when the train got invented with the steam engine, then the horse guys wanted to make the trains. They wanted to make the trains illegal. They basically wanted to have a period of time where they didn't have any more. They didn't have any competition from these things. So sure. He goes into the politics of all of that, and it's very interesting. It's a good. So the birth of modern. So you would
recommend that over Tragedy and Hope. If you're going to pick between the two, and nobody has to, so.
If you really want to know what's going on in the world, then you need to understand Tragedy and Hope. Everything else is secondary to Tragedy and Hope.
But check out Tragedy and Hope 101. It's like a couple hour read versus a couple week read. Weeks. I mean, I spent over a week and a half, I think, reading that when I was on vacation, and it was brutal.
Yeah, it's not fun. It's not a fun book. It's like one of these books that gets assigned to you in your second year of college that you have to read. And you have to read it in order to pass the course, and you just don't want to. So. Exactly. Anyway.
So back to the current events thing, Peter. I don't know if you saw it, but Rush Limbaugh was trending all over Twitter today.
And what was that about?
That's about him saying that we're trending towards secession. And he doesn't necessarily think it's a bad thing. More or less. I don't know the word succession actually came out of his mouth. It was hard to tell because the left was all over.
He's supporting John Podesta's point of view?
I support John Podesta's point of view.
Well, see, here's my issue with that. My issue with that is that the divide and conquer strategy is what the UN globalist people have always wanted. They want us to fight with one another so that they can dominate us with their F-35s and their nuclear-powered aircraft carriers that they will gladly take off of our hands once we demonstrate that we're not responsible enough to manage them ourselves. And so that's my issue. I don't want the UN. I don't want to be divided so that somebody else can come in and start playing power politics with us.
Right, but if you think the split red-blue happens, do you think that the Reds are going to let? Maybe we go back to being blues then, or some other color. You really think that they would allow the UN to come in and do that? I think that's probably the only safe bet against the UN.
Oh no, I could see them encouraging states to secede, and if Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi are in power, that they could call in help from the United Nations in order to, because they can't control, these red states or however they frame it.
You really think that they would actually go kinetic war to keep the states together? Yeah, no, I'm not saying that he's advocating it. The idea to me that Limbaugh's even talking about this, that idea has made it all the way up to somebody with that big of a microphone is huge. It's a big deal.
Yeah, the suggestion is the metadata, right? It doesn't matter whether he's for it or against it. If he's talking about it, then he's putting that zeitgeist out there, right?
Well, we're talking about attention. Now you've got people's attention on that idea. And you're talking about somebody who has an audience in the 50+ million range. Mm-hmm. And now it just got fed over to the left because they're outraged about it. got the clip that I watched was courtesy of Media Matters. And I'm like, oh, great. Now they all know. This is perfect.
Right.
Yeah. I get it. I just said it came out of Media Matters. I get it. The idea that it's even an idea that is presented to you. Because one of the gripes that we have about Limbaugh comes from Servando Gonzalez's book, talking about the Council on Foreign Relations. And he says Limbaugh never says these guys' names.
Right.
And there's a reason he doesn't.
Right.
But now he's sitting there talking about breaking it up. It's a big deal.
Right.
Just raising the idea.
So Gonzalez, I'm hearing an echo, Trace. Anyway, Gonzalez conceit is that Limbaugh was compromised. We all remember when he had his quote-unquote drug problem and that he went into the hospital and that he was facing a lot of adversity. And then he came out of the hospital and he rebounded and he got rewarded with a $400 million contract, or can't remember.
Something insane like that.
Some giant, huge contract. But he also never discusses or has any kind of conversations regarding the Council on Foreign Relations or anybody who's a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. Like, they just never get spoken of or talked about. So, you just have to be careful. You have to be careful with Rush. You have to be careful with Tucker. You have to be careful with, anybody who you have this like warm, fuzzy affiliation with. The fact that you like somebody that much should be a warning sign to you that it makes you susceptible to, Scott calls it, he uses the Sherlock Holmes quote, the dog that doesn't bark, right?
Yes.
Somebody recommended 2 books to me. I started to talk to you about them last week, and I got about 2 or 3 chapters. I started 3 books within about 2 days last week. And I got within, I got 2 chapters into them and I realized, this is a CIA reframing book.
Which book is this?
I
love when you tell me stories about books that you don't know the name of. You think about that. Tucker, these people are limited hangouts, right? Tucker knows more than he talks about on air. Limbaugh knows more than he talks about on air. So there's a term for that where you say a limited hangout. Well, you'll give some of the hidden information or share some of your opinion, but hold back on stuff.
Right. And Tucker's father ran the Voice of America for 6 years. And Voice of America was the original line item for Smith-Mundt. So,
yeah,
he's got Smith-Mundt pedigree.
Yeah, just think of they're all actors. How about that?
Yeah, they're all people who, like us, I have this like frame around me right now, and I got a microphone, and I'm looking into the camera, and because of the way I'm looking into the camera and the way that I'm using my voice, I'm controlling your attention, and the words that I have that are coming out of my mouth are going into your ears and into your brain, and they're painting pictures, and they're putting ideas in there. And if I do this right, then tomorrow you'll be sitting at the coffee table with somebody, and the words that I'm using right now will be coming out of your mouth, and you will assume that they are your own. And it's all because this thing that you're looking at right now is a hypnosis machine.
Yeah.
Lies and secrets. I don't know what lies and secrets are. Those?
Yeah, I don't know. Did you figure out what book it was that you were talking about that was the CIA reframe book?
No, but I did remember. Well, the CIA reframe book was Blowback.
Okay,
which is supposed to be a leftist anti-government book, but it reminded me of the Pentagon Papers and the reason I think it's a CIA book is because it's all about, at least the first 2 chapters, which is all I read of it. He makes the assumption that Al Qaeda was responsible for 9/11. And then what was the other thing? and that it was because of it was a reaction to the military provocation of the United States getting involved in overseas adventures, but completely left out any mention of the Central Intelligence Agency, any mention of mining or oil resources or human trafficking or money laundering, or it was all military. So I was reading, I was thinking as I'm reading this book, Blowback, that it's like when, who's the guy who did the Pentagon Papers? Daniel Ellsberg.
Yeah.
Daniel Ellsberg worked for the Central Intelligence Agency when he leaked the Pentagon Papers and basically framed the Pentagon for all of the bad stuff that was going on in Vietnam that was being caused by the Central Intelligence Agency. So, these guys don't play nice. The CIA and the Pentagon, they don't play nice with one another. And writing books is a big CIA program. And so I was reading, Blowback. I think John O'Loughlin was talking about the book. And I had it on a list of books that I was going to go look at. Because I was looking, what was I looking for? I was looking for that other guy, the pilot that we were talking about, Fletcher Prouty.
Fletcher Prouty, yeah.
I was looking for the secret teams, and then it pushed the algorithm. The algorithm pushed Blowback to me and gave me Blowback for free for whatever reason. It said it would charge me $0 on my Audible account. So I thought,
that's interesting.
So
Amazon's pushing out like pro CIA propaganda.
Yeah, so Amazon. So I'm looking for Fletcher Prouty. It's feeding me Blowback, right? And I went for it, but I'm gotten to a point right now where I understand the framing. So I read someplace that a lot of books you can, especially academic books, you can't do this with Quigley. Do not do this with Quigley. It doesn't work with Quigley.
Yeah, Tragedy and Hope, it won't work with.
And it doesn't work with Anthony Sutton either. But you can read the first chapter. You can read the last chapter. So what you do is you read the first chapter first. This is an academic book. So a really good example of a book like this would be The Innovator's Dilemma by Clayton Christensen. Business strategy book, brilliant book, total snooze fest. But if you read the first chapter of that book, it's a Harvard Business School book. So if you read the first chapter of the book and you read the last chapter of the book, and then go back and you read the first paragraph and the last paragraph of each chapter in the middle, you can clear through that book in a tenth of the time as it would take you to read the whole book. And the reason is because the first chapter of the book is always the premise. The last chapter of the book is always the conclusion. In the middle of the book, especially in an academic book like a Harvard Business School book, is all case studies. And the first paragraph and the last paragraph is basically the introduction and the conclusion of the case study. And so if you assume that their science is correct, and because it's a peer-reviewed thing, it has to get peer-reviewed before it gets published as a business school book like that, then you can assume that they did their homework when they did their case studies. Because a lot of times the case studies are just kind of the nuts and bolts of how they did the case study. And once you read one, you basically read every chapter in the book. So
there's your hack of the day.
That's just on. So John, he's reading Blowback currently.
Interesting.
I didn't know John is reading it now. How did you get my password?
No, you're not paying attention. When you're talking, I'm watching the comments, so that all makes sense.
All right.
I'll interrupt you if there's something good.
I did remember, though, that I got an email saying that I got a refund. So if I went back and looked in my emails right now, I could probably tell you the name of one of this. But I'm not going to waste your time doing that. I'll figure it out.
You find it, put it on the site.
It was. I did talk to you about this book. It was the book about how people are remixing their own religions.
Yeah, and you had me listening to it. I got bored after the first chapter.
Yeah, I didn't. I was.
So
I had the same issue.
Wouldn't recommend it.
Nope. Yeah, maybe we should make a list of books we don't recommend.
Yeah, if somebody recommends this, run away. Can we monetize that?
Right.
Oh, man.
I mean, what was the other book? I can't even remember what the other book was. But there was a book that I read last month ago that was recommended to me by I tried to read. I got 3/4 of the way through it, and I had to stop just because it was like running into a wall. Called "Seeing Like a State."
Oh, it sounds boring.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, this is something that somebody at the State Department reads. To be able to write analytical reports. The big takeaway of that book is that policy is driven by data. I mean, I could probably surmise the whole book in 2 pages, but the idea of that book is that if you're measuring A, B, and C, and you're putting A, B, and C into your report, then your policies are going to reflect A, B, and C. And if A, B, and C are not a holistic way of looking at whatever it is that you're managing, that you may make really, really bad decisions that wind up having real deleterious effects. And so the whole book is examples of people who are measuring this, and they made this policy that caused this other thing to happen, which wound up having all of these really bad results. And it seems
would explain a lot of the crappy policies that we see. And it always seems that they don't think about secondary consequences.
Sure, but
sorry.
To quote my friend who recommended the book to me, he said most books should be articles, most articles should be tweets, and most tweets should not be written.
Yes.
And so, so the big takeaway of that book was that the farther up the federalization chain you go, so the more that you try to centralize authority as far as policy is concerned, the more broken your policies will become, which kind of supports your worldview, which is, okay, break everything up.
Yeah. I mean, look at it. Andrew Cuomo's out today saying they need a bailout or New York's going to fail. And I tweeted at him, like, you broke it, you buy it. I had nothing to do with that. You had nothing to do with that. I mean, every state that decided to shut themselves down made that decision, and it was the governor. So why don't you hold yourself personally liable, Andrew? Oh, you don't have $60 billion laying around?
Well, why doesn't the state hold him liable? Why don't they throw him in a volcano? That's what the Aztecs used to do.
I know. Yellowstone, that super volcano, right? Maybe we can appease it and keep it from exploding in our lifetime by feeding it politicians.
Kilauea ate my friend Drew's house, so I know it.
There you go.
His house went under 60 feet of lava, so I know that thing is still going.
Yeah, I mean it works for me. You can take my governor while you're at it after he gets out of COVID confinement because Mr. Mask couldn't stay safe himself. But yet I'm supposed to trust his policies to keep me safe.
Mark Burnett.
I've been laughing for 2 days on that one.
There's a reality show I want Mark Burnett to make. I want a real volcano. When you get voted off the island, you get voted off the island.
Cuomo versus the volcano.
Yeah.
Starring Tom Hanks.
Right, exactly.
He reappears.
How about Bill Gates versus the volcano, or Al Gore versus the volcano, or George? So anyway, they're running Trump into a Nuremberg untested vax trial. Yeah, I understand what Cindy's saying, but I think it's a lot of people may not understand. There's 2 ways to think about Nuremberg, because there's the Nuremberg trials where we took all of the Nazis for their war crimes, basically all the Patsies, because we hired all the real Nazis and moved them over here and put them to work. But for all the Patsies who got hung, there was a trial, a show trial. And but there was also something called the Nuremberg laws. That I think there were 2 sets of Nuremberg laws. There were the Nazi Nuremberg laws, which are the anti-Jew laws, right? And then there were the international Nuremberg laws, which basically said that you're not allowed to do medical experiments on people without asking them first.
Yeah, and everybody stuck to that one.
Right. And so what they did is that they just got really clever about the way that they ask you now. Right.
Well, and keep in mind, all of that happens, and then you have MK Ultra. and you have Dr. Sidney Gottlieb and giving people LSD and all kinds of other stuff without their consent or knowledge.
And don't
So
forget,
it's
and
just
Joseph.
funny.
Don't forget Joseph. Shh. Don't forget Joseph Mengele.
Oh yeah, that's true. But Mengele is in line with those. What I'm talking about after the fact, the United States government through the CIA just went ahead and did the same things that we just shook our finger at them and said, "How dare you? This should be a war crime." Hey guys, Google Operation Midnight Climax. And if you don't end up on Pornhub, you should see some documents. You're like, oh, okay. Yes, the CIA was running a whorehouse in San Francisco and dosing guys that would come in there.
And hiring prostitutes.
Yeah. We won't do experiments on people with drugs without their knowledge. No, we would never do that.
Yeah, and we wouldn't encourage people to do drugs knowing that it causes them to not be very organized in putting together like things like demonstrations and things like that. You cannot use untested vaccines on humans that end.
Well,
in
they
death.
are, so they can.
Haven't a bunch of people already died?
Right, people are lining up to do it because they've got everybody so damn scared, and they think this is their ticket back to normalcy.
Can anyone explain the Russian Jewish business?
I would imagine that part of it is derived from the commie background of de Blasio. Like, de Blasio is a true believer, and you cannot abide people that have strong religious faith that won't participate in your little commie program. That's a huge threat to them. Why do you think that they got rid of organized religion in Russia?
Yeah, and in studying all this Kabbalist stuff that I've been studying lately, the thing that's interesting to know is that their belief system is incredibly structured. It's not based on faith; it is based on logic, and it becomes very difficult to move those people ideologically because they've got really good arguments for why they believe what they believe. So,
yes, and the black and white is intentional for those of you just joining us.
It is because it fixed a lot of things that we were having issues with. So,
yeah,
I kind of like it with our background too because this was the background that we had on the old black and white TVs. You're too young to remember that, Tracy, but there was a time when television looked just like this.
There was a black and white TV in my house when I was growing up in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's little.
The interesting thing though is that television had like 1/10 the resolution of this picture,
right?
And we're not even streaming at the highest resolution.
No, and yes, they can. They do think they can get away with it. They are getting away with it, being cracking down on the Jewish community in New York City. But they're not taking it. They're not abiding by this. They were the first big group to kind of defy the orders. They haven't been paying any damn attention to this.
Yeah, that's why Russian Orthodox. That's why Orthodoxy in general is coming back. But it's interesting too, because getting back to the Billy Phillips thing, because his contention, and I think that there's a lot of evidence that what he's saying is correct, is that a lot of the schisms between the different flavors of Christianity and Judaism are all based on translations. He talks a lot about the tetragrammaton. I can't even pronounce it.
Tetragrammatron.
And he's got one mathematical variation on that, which is 10,565 is what the numerical values of the letters are. But
eyes are glazing over. What is he talking about? Tetragrammatron? Oh, he's got this mathematical equation. It's like, oh God, Peter wants us to do math.
Anyway, it's a mathematical. I look at it, and Robert Grant looks at it, and they think, and Robert Grant looks at it, and he goes, "Oh, this looks like a math equation." And then,
one of the things that they always shove into sci-fi movies is that math is the universal language. That if we ever encountered aliens, we would communicate with them mathematically. because there
Right.
seem to be mathematical constants that make sense across the the known universe, at least. So that would
Sure.
become a universal language, and that seems to be what the Kabbalists believe. And the Hebrew language is based off of a numeric system, is my current understanding. So these guys are trying to break the math code in a couple different ways, right? Is that a good summation?
Yep. And
Okay.
I went off into a logical, and Dirk Momo there says, what about moving them off that valuable real estate, which is probably a much more practical.
But I don't think that real estate's as valuable anymore. They've destroyed the property value of everything in New York City.
Well, yeah, but all of the property value was destroyed in the 1970s too, when they were running hookers on 42nd and strip clubs and porno movie theaters on 42nd Street, and then Giuliani and Brett, who is the police chief, no broken windows guy.
Kelly?
Say again?
Was it Kelly or was Kelly after him?
No. Basically, they cleaned everything up, and they lent Donald Trump a bunch of money, and they raised all of the real estate values in New York again. So, buy low, sell high. How do you control real estate like a market? You create civil unrest, which depresses the value of the real estate. You come in and you buy it cheap. You fix all of the civil problems by changing the laws. You raise the price of the real estate. You turn around, you sell it later, sell high. The Rockefellers don't own Rockefeller Center anymore, or they sold it to the Japanese. Who owns it now? I can't remember.
Chinese. Probably.
The Chinese? Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
Letters, numbers. Yes, letters, numbers. But I'm not sure whether or not the Kabbalistic numbers are the right numbers, because if you follow Robert Grant, who did a really interesting live stream this weekend where he claims that he has cracked public key encryption and has published a white paper on it that's being peer-reviewed right now, which has all kinds of Mr. Robot-like consequences associated with it. Robert Grant looks at the tetragrammaton and sees...
You have to explain the tetragrammaton.
It is...
Because that's a word that you and I both learned in the past probably 3 months, and to expect that anybody else knows what that means. They're like, is this Nintendo?
It's the
boss,
four...
the end of some...
It's the 4 Hebrew letters that are the unpronounceable name of God. And the reason that it's... And there's all kinds of speculation about why you can't say it, or why you shouldn't say it, or why you don't say it. And Robert Grant looks at it and he goes, oh, this looks like pi times 7 times pi to the 7th power, which would explain why you can't say it, because it's not a word, it's a formula. That would explain why it's not pronounceable. But, the jury's out on that. He's still working the math on that. But one of the things that you and I were talking about is the idea that when all of these things get translated from, the original Aramaic into Hebrew, into Greek, into English, whatever they get translated into, if the words or the letters or the sigils, whatever you want to call them, are actually indicative of some kind of encoded system, and you move it into a different language, do you lose that entire encoded system? And my guess is probably yes. So anyway, we were talking about something else, though, before I changed the subject.
I know. We're going on, it's all right, digression session. But if you want to talk anything more about what's going on in D.C. this weekend before we wrap it up, because we already exceeded my time limit.
That's right. Tracy goes to bed early. I am going to join Ali Alexander. He's got a bunch of events that he's running in D.C. right now. He's putting the boots on the ground, as it were. He's getting people to come out, not only in Washington. Laura Loomer, I think, is running something with Roger Stone in Miami tomorrow or Saturday.
And you can find all this stuff at stopthesteal.us.
Yeah, if you go to stopthesteal.us, and if you can't make it out there, there's phone banks that you can call. There's phone numbers so you can call up different politicians and let them know what you're thinking. And there's all kinds of different ways to get involved. You can even give them money and help them pay for my plane ticket. But
Yeah, everybody should follow Ali.
Everybody should follow Ali. Everybody should listen to Ali. Ali is the leader of the direct action movement for the free United States. You and I were playing around with different the free United States, which could be abbreviated FU states, right?
And mine was the states. States that are free. Oh crap! States that are free and united, which is the abbreviated STFU.
STFU and FUS, either one. So Tracy and I are starting our breakaway republic, and we're looking for good names right now.
Yeah.
And
I don't know about that. Oh, the Bergie and Ali fight from a couple months ago. Is that what you're talking about, Ms. Lady?
Yeah, I think that I think Bergie talks about things that he doesn't know about sometimes.
Okay. I don't know. I don't have an answer to that question.
Wait, Netanyahu's in power. Netanyahu who was in power during the Albright-Clinton War on the Orthodox Christian Serbs still has to explain to me. No, he doesn't have to explain anything. Why he agreed to bomb them. I have yet to get an answer to the question. So I don't know enough about that.
Yeah, I don't either. Thought you might know. Those are the letters Alf, Imam, and Shin, the first, middle, and penultimate letters of the alphabet. They are the energy for the 4 seasons of the year. I had oral teaching. Excellent. Well, if you want to come on and educate us, we'd be happy to have you. Peter and I are just dipping our toes in this water, and any new person that can teach us something would be greatly appreciated.
I'm a dilettante Kabbalist.
Yeah. Interesting. Excellent. I'm trying to learn how to pronounce these things as I'm learning the tarot, because the tarot coincides with that as well. And so it's a tough slog.
Provides the coldness of winter. Aleph is the great harmonizer. Yeah, again, Tracy and I were talking last week, I think, about the fact that tarot cards may be and the letters, the way that you're talking about them, Billy Phillips' entire shtick is that all of these things are codes, or metaphors for for hidden language. And the thing that got me interested in the first place was that his assumption about the exoteric and the esoteric is kind of fundamental to his entire presentation. And that dovetails exactly with, what we had figured out earlier.
Yeah. And somebody's asking, and I'm not going to put it up because they swore in it, and I'd like to try to keep it a little clean. Why do you say, Peter, that Bergie's full of it?
No, I said Bergie talks about some things that he doesn't know about.
Exactly.
Okay, so Ali... So Ali got into this. Ali does some things that I disagree with, but he's still my friend. Okay. He started a fight with this chick,
Millie
Weaver, and her
Tor and Bergie.
Boyfriend Gavin Wintz, and it was when that some movie came out.
Their documentary came out, and they had that whole drama about being arrested, and
right.
Yeah, that was back in August or September. Right,
and so Ali understands attention, and to the going back to the beginning of our conversation and talking about Sidney Powell and the Kraken, if it turns out that none of that stuff is effective or helpful, the net effect of it will have been to keep everybody in front of their computer screens instead of going to stopthesteal.us and actually going out and doing something, right? This is the problem with QAnon. This is the problem with Trust Huber, Trust Sessions, Trust Barr, Trust blah, 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 is that if you think that the hammer is about to fall and all you have to do is wait for it to happen, that keeps you from going out and doing anything. It keeps you from showing up on the steps of the city hall and making noise. It stops you from getting angry and shaking your fist someplace. And that's the entire rationale for that type of psychological operation. So Ali looked at it and he thought, this is a psyop. And he decided that he wanted to try to do something about it. Now, Berge may be telling the truth. Berge may be completely accurate in the way that he's depicting his experience. And he may have gotten involved with other people who are bad actors or who are involved in things for different reasons. They may also all be crazy, all of them, you know. I don't know the answer to the question. But one of the things that I've purposefully done in the last 4 or 5 years is that I don't really pick fights with people that I disagree with. I disagree with Will Chamberlain, for example, on a lot of things, all right? But I don't go to war with Will Chamberlain. I mean, he's a nice guy. I'll sit and have a drink with him.
No, it's not worth it. And you and I discussed this. Like, it presents problems having certain people on because they have beefs with other people. And then it's, do Peter and I want to play that game? And we decided we don't.
Right.
We just want to have people on. We'll let them voice their opinion. And it's clearly their opinion, not ours. We don't have to agree with them 100%. Peter and I don't agree with each other 100%. We tone it down on here. I don't think we've gotten into any real arguments about stuff. But we do that. And I'm sure it'll happen at some point in time. But
yeah, and in fact, that was the whole genesis of this show, is that I think we were having an argument about something one day, and I said, this would be good content. We should do this.
Yeah, so we should pick stuff that we know we're going to argue about we'll have a drag out once a month.
Okay, yeah, you could go full anarchist on me, because I'm
well,
only...
we can have the simulation fight.
Okay. Do we fight on the simulation?
Yeah, you believe in hard simulation. That's my take, is that you believe hard simulation.
Maybe.
Okay. Have you evolved off of that? Because I remember taking a walk with you around your neighborhood and talking about this, and I was trying to poke holes in your.
Well, maybe it's the Billy Phillips effect on me, but one of the things that Billy Phillips talks about is that in a multiverse, so in a universe that has an infinite number. So one of the things, I dropped a lot of LSD when I was in college, and I came to the conclusion when I was doing that I believe that not only do we exist, always have existed, and always will exist in the form that we know, but every variation that is imaginable also exists and exists simultaneously in separate universes. And apparently that's string theory. And at least that's the way Billy Phillips explains it. And I need to go research that, because the stuff that I've read about string theory, I didn't really buy into that much. But
it's sort of, my understanding of string theory is they just added they were running all those math equations that look like a beautiful mind kind of stuff on a board. And they say, oh, this means that there's this many dimensions. And I think string theory was just adding another number to that dimensionality. Like they had been there's 11. And somebody said, well, what if we try 12 in those formulas? Will it work? And then all of a sudden they worked.
Right.
And so it was describing the movement of a string on like a guitar or something like that. And they looked at all the dimensions that it was impacting. So
one of the ideas that I've played around with for a while is the idea that whenever you change your mind, that's a miracle. Because there's a thought that you've had that dies, is resurrected, and reborn as a new thought. And then that becomes a miracle. Where that overlaps with what Billy Phillips is saying is, he said, whenever you change your mind, you're changing universes. Like you're switching from one dimension to another dimension. So it's not like you are actually even in the same place. You're just dimension switching when you change your mind.
Yeah. Well, that could explain the Mandela effect. And Corky, I agree with you. I've been trying to get Peter to at least listen to Tom Campbell and his theory, which is holographic universe. Or virtual reality universe, excuse me. Holographic for sure.
I don't know if that's exclusive. I don't know if that's...
we won't do that, Cindy. You don't know if what's exclusive.
If I'm out, what did she say?
She said, I'm out if you go all Jason Goodman LARP wars on me, and we will not do that.
No.
No.
And in fact, Jason Goodman. He likes to make videos about me.
Yeah, well, we're not going to make videos about Jason Goodman because we have better things to talk about, and I don't really know who he is, so I don't care all that much. All right, everybody check out Dr. Hamamoto tonight on Macbeth's channel. All right, is there a $4 fee?
What?
No, I don't know if you saw the stories they're talking about in New York charging a $3 per package delivery fee so they can use that to fund the MTA, I think it's called, so the Metro Transit Authority. Because they're going broke because nobody's going to work. So all the people that don't have jobs and aren't using the trains are now ordering stuff at home, and they want to charge them extra for that. Well, I'm sorry that you don't believe in dimensions. I don't understand how you function in the world.
Right. How do you get through your door?
Right. Do you live in Flatland? Which is a book that I would recommend everybody read.
Do you have a clock?
All right. Yeah, we have to get Dr. Hamamoto on here. So, yes. And you could read Tom Campbell's stuff. He talks a lot about entropy in his book, My Big Toe, My Big Theory of Everything. Maybe everything's a metaphor. I don't know. I mean, language is so imprecise, and trying to share your own experience with everybody, it's easier to do so in metaphor.
Yeah, and everything is a universal quantifier, and it's always a red flag for me.
I know.
Got to run. I think Tracy's got to run too.
In a minute. I will. We can get through the rest of these.
Okay.
But I want to... Yep. All right, Cindy, we're having you on the show. I want to hear about Kabbalah. We can talk about wavelengths and time jumpers. And I can't remember this woman that I found. I want to say her name is Star something or other. And she has this whole thing. Instead of the Mandela effect, she had actually quantified it as something else, did all the physics work, gave it a name that I now can't remember. But the phenomenon, she said, is real, and it's kind of like these reboots that happen.
Yeah, I was talking about Robert Grant's math to a friend of mine who's a big cryptocurrency investor guy who was a math major in college. And I was showing him the stuff that Grant was talking about this weekend. And he said, every 25 years or so, some geometer pops up and says that they've solved this problem. He said historically. And that there's usually a bunch of noise about it, and then they go and they work the numbers, and it doesn't quite add up to what they're saying. So he was highly skeptical. But that said, we're all waiting for the peer-reviewed papers to come out to see what the real mathematicians say. So,
yeah, I mean, I'm with ECAT. It's the holographic spaghetti effect or something like that.
I don't know what holographic spaghetti is.
She's making up a joke about what we live in. So like holographic spaghetti effect is what she's saying we could call the Mandela effect. Because I can't remember what this woman who claims to be a physicist and has cracked this code. And she's very angry that it's been popularized under the Mandela effect because she thinks it undermines like the importance of the science behind it that she's done to prove that these are like time shifts that we're experiencing.
Well, that dovetails with Billy Phillips.
Sure. I mean, I think everything we look at seems to dovetail. 2 esoteric Biden reasons will lose. 1, it's a 4-year. 4 is the number of law and order. He is a horse in the year of a rat. Enemy signs.
Maybe.
I don't know. I mean, that would be great. I'll take any reason at this point in time, but...
Saturn and Jupiter are in conjunction on the 21st, too.
Yes.
Which is the shortest day of the year.
Yeah, it's the the winter solstice.
Right.
And it's the first time in 700 years or so that combination has aligned.
And is it going to be at 1200? I think.
Is it? I thought the last time it happened was in the year 1200. Oh, whatever. That doesn't even make sense either.
Anyway, it was a long time ago.
Yes.
And is it a full moon too on that night? I can't remember.
I don't know. Well, good. I think I know what I'm talking about too.
No, I think she said she thinks you know who you're talking about. Tracy and Philly, Harrisburg reading, Hagerstown, Charette.
Yeah, well.
My issue with the charrettes is I want to get something done. Sitting around and talking, we can do. We can
hop on a conference call.
We can hop on a conference call and talk anytime. But like, a charrette to me is about getting something done.
Ron, was it the Unabomber that you were talking to in your town in the 70s? It was talking about all this stuff. Please say so. That would be fun.
Like Ryan Dawson calls him Uncle Ted.
It's a solar eclipse too. Interesting. All right, we got to look all that up. Where do we go now? I don't know. Maybe there's a giant split. There's a Saturn-Pluto conjunction as well as the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction.
The thing is about a Saturn-Pluto conjunction is you can't really see it. At least not in Los Angeles, you can't see it.
Well, you can't really see Pluto, right? It's very difficult. So 800 years. Now, we're going to have to Google all this, and we'll come back and bring on our resident esoteric experts to talk to us about this.
Tracy posted a good meme about the conjunction last night, though.
Yeah, on our Instagram, which all of you should be following, because I'm finding tons of really fun memes. So I'm just sharing them like crazy over there, and it's the same branding everywhere. So it's at the Reality OS on Instagram. Yeah. So let me. Oh, that was on my stories, Peter. I don't know if I can still look at.
Well, so then you have to go back to your archive to go
there we
find
go.
it. Yeah.
So the convergence, it doesn't tell me how long it's been since that happened.
So Fred Barron says, I am working on the tuning system to the sub-mind right now. I flirt with moments of connectivity that the conscious mind can't understand.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, Billy Phillips uses this metaphor that knowledge is like understanding what a bike is, and consciousness is like riding the bike.
All right.
I'm still processing that. I got a cool story from today. First of all, everything's a cool story to me. Look, I got a cool story from today, kind of cool how it relates. I will make a cake for you. I removed 100-year-old house wiring in Detroit today. The vibrations were
way before 40 years old. Just sharing a little story.
Okay. Or butterfly effect. Building footprints.
That's crazy. I'd love to hear that story.
Yep, Cindy, the medium is the message. You should probably just be talking to us.
Yes. Yeah, we'll connect with us on
yeah, right.
Yeah. What, Peter?
Yeah, ECAT says, oops, I was wrong. It was Jupiter. Yeah. Jupiter and Saturn. Benjamin Franklin. Mason invented electricity.
Yes. Among other things. Crack and Kelsey. Yes, we are. We are fully operational.
We're trying to keep it real here.
Yeah.
105 members of Congress have joined the Texas court case. Okay, great. Let's see if that works.
It will be the tour jacket.
Just for the record, I'm an advocate of Trump going full Lincoln. I'd like him to pull the Insurrection Act cord and throw all these people in jail and shut down all of these news outlets. because it couldn't be worse than the way that it is now. But that's just me.
I suppose that's the point of the charrette. I'm just offended that it's called a charrette. I don't like French.
Much ado about anthropocentric academic speculation out there. No serious exegesis. Well, I'd like to show, Phil, I'd like to show you some of the Billy Phillips stuff because and get your exegetical opinion on it, because he starts jumping around with the definitions of words in the Kabbalah. And
all right, send it to Phil offline.
And he has a hypothesis that part of the schism between Judaism and Christianity is based on mistranslations from the Hebrew into the Greek.
Interesting. I don't know who William Joseph Campbell is.
I assume he's not talking about Joseph Campbell.
No.
Hero with 1,000 Faces.
No, because Tom Campbell would be too old to be his son, I would think. Anyway, so if you can give me some more information about who his father is, I'd be interested, because I know that Tom Campbell, after he was a physicist that discovered how you can have out-of-body experiences on command, then went on and worked for NASA and some other federal agencies. So I find that all interesting.
Tuning minds with frequency. That's Hollywood. That's Hollywood. That's radio. That's New York. Yes. I'm using my voice to modulate words, speak into a microphone that are coming out of a speaker, and using frequencies to alter your reality. And if we believe in the string theory thing, I may be causing you to shift from one universe to another, and you don't even know it.
I don't think that's how string theory works, Peter.
I don't know how it works. That's what I'm saying.
No, string theory is just about the number of dimensions that exist. Is my basic understanding of it.
Okay.
All right. We will get your number from George then, Cindy, and reach out and set something up. All right. Last call for comments, questions, anything like that. And Peter will try to do something while you're in DC this week.
Yeah.
This weekend.
It might not be this beautiful picture. I might have to do it with my phone, but yeah.
No, maybe you can commandeer Ali and give us like 15 minutes with him.
We could do that.
To chat. And then do you plan on live streaming out there, so people should be paying attention to your Periscope over the weekend?
Sometimes my live streams aren't terribly interesting when I do that, because a lot of times what I do is I will take my phone, I will attach it to the top of my camera. So you're actually watching me go around and shoot pictures as if you're looking the same place that my camera is looking.
Right. And kind of a photography lesson. It's a way that this is what I would think makes an interesting shot.
Yeah. The only issue with it is that I usually shoot with more than one camera. So if the camera that I'm shooting with isn't the one that I'm holding up, then you may be looking at the sidewalk for a couple minutes while I, use the other camera. But those videos, when I do them, they get a few views. So
yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to have you on the ground there and see what it's like.
Indeed. All right.
All right. Thanks, everybody. And maybe we'll be back over the weekend. You never know.
Who
knows? Not, we'll be back when Peter's back.
All right. Very good. Good night, Tracy.
Good night, Peter.